Hello, you programmers, and welcome to your 46th chapter in your Java EE 7 tutorial series. In the previous episode, we had gone over all the concepts of using the JMS API. This episode, we'll be taking a look into the examples of these concepts, and if you haven't watched my last video, I highly recommend it since all these examples will be stemming from those JMS concepts. Okay, strap yourselves in, this will be a long one, and let's jump right into these examples. So first of all, let's take a look into writing simple JMS applications. These examples show how to create, package, and run simple JMS clients that are packaged as application clients. They'll be doing basic tasks that is needed by any application client, like creating JMS context, creating message producers which send messages, and creating message consumers that receive messages. Okay, but first things first, let's make sure that all the resources are created before we start any examples. To start our Glassfish server, let's head on to our CMD. Okay, so now that we got our CMD up and running, let's go ahead and try to start our Glassfish server. So go ahead and copy this line of code as admin start domain verbose. Make sure that you make it exactly the same as this. Go ahead and enter, and your Glassfish server will start to run. We can test to see if it's running if we go ahead and open our Chrome and go into our local host 4848. Go ahead and open that up, and you will find that your Glassfish server is up and running. And if at any moment you want to stop your Glassfish server, but in this case, in our example, we don't need to stop our Glassfish server at any time, but if you do, you can go ahead and copy this as admin stop domain 1. And if you go ahead and enter that, it will stop your domain. Now to see if your Glassfish server is still running, you can again go into your Chrome and put in localhost 4848. And now this time you'll find out that your site cannot be reached because your Glassfish server has stopped this time. Okay, so now that you know how to stop your Glassfish server, let's make sure that it's running again. So that is running. And once again, let's go into our local host 4848 just to make sure that it's running. Okay, so now that it's running, let's go ahead. We can go ahead and close this guy, go into our CMD, and let's navigate to our, okay, so go into your C drive. Go to your Glassfish, wherever your Glassfish is stored. Go into your docs, Java EE tutorial, examples, and go into your JMS. Then go into your simple, and then finally your producer. So this is our producer client, which creates our messages. Go into CD and paste that right there. So now you're in the directory of your producer client. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to do as admin. So if we go to our thing, we have our as admin add resources. Go ahead and paste that and hit enter. So you can see that these resources have been created. So you have your my queue and your my topic. You can go ahead and, well, in my case it already exists, but if you want to check it, you can go ahead and put as admin list JMS resources, and this will list all your resources that you have created. As you can see, these are all my resources, and what you will see is your my queue and your my topic. And one last thing that I want you to do, I want you to go into your NetBeans IDE, and let's go right ahead and build all our simple examples. This will make sure that our examples are running up and tidy so they don't have any problems. So you can go ahead and right click and put open project and navigate to your JMS. Open this guy up and go ahead and click the simple folder and make sure that you have your open required projects and open project. This will open up your projects, and all you got to do is right click your simple project over here and click build, and this will build everything that you need for the examples that are coming up. If it's successful, you will see this build success over here. Okay, so now that you got that, once again, let's make sure that we have our Glassfish server running. And in our case, we do. So let's go ahead and close it. And now what we're going to do is run our producer client. This is the client that sends the messages. Okay, so go into your CD producer, or in my case, this is exactly where my producer is inside my Java EE tutorial, wherever you saved that. Examples, JMS, simple, and producer. Go ahead and paste that. CD, and then paste it. And then now that you're inside this directory, let's go ahead and run our application client. So copy that. And what this is telling us is our application client will target the producer.jar, and the queue will send in 3 messages. So if we go ahead and run that, you will see this over here. So there's a lot of information over here. Don't worry about this. All you got to worry about is this part right over here. Your destination type is queue, and the sending messages are these 3, and the text messages sent are 3. So these messages are now in the queue and are waiting to be received. So before we were talking about sending messages, now let's take care of receiving those messages synchronously. Alright, so now let's run our Synchronous Consumer.java receiving client. So first you want to make sure that your Glassfish server has already started. And let's go to the same terminal window where you ran your producer and go to the sync consumer directory. For me, this will be that over right there. So go ahead and put cd wherever your directory is saved and sync consumer. Once you're inside that, let's make sure that we can now specify the queue that we want this consumer to consume the messages from. You remember our app client before, so let's go ahead. Our app client target them. So in this case, our name is consumer.jar, and let's make sure that it targets the queue. As you can see, I scroll down a little bit, and now you can see all this stuff, and right over here we see that our destination type is queue. And it's actually reading the message, and it's saying that this message is from the producer, and it's message 1, 2, and 3. So now let's try to run the clients in an opposite order. So let's run the sync consumer client first. So let's go ahead and put client target / sync consumer.jar queue. So now that this guy is running, let's go ahead and pop into another CMD, and let's go into our producer over here. So producer, let's navigate to that. And now this guy, you can see, is running, and he's waiting for the queue. So inside our producer, let's go ahead and put app client, and then let's put target producer.jar, because this is our producer.jar, and queue3. So this will send 3 messages over to your consumer. Now you can see that it's starting to run, and it sent 3 messages, and your consumer consumed your messages by reading it, and it said that these 3 messages are received. So this is the power of our producer and our consumer. So now let's run the producer client using a topic instead of a queue. Now a topic is simply, so let's say we have multiple consumers. A topic is useful. Well, you already know what a topic is from the previous tutorial, but to summarize quickly, a topic is basically like a little bulletin board that whatever the producer sends to that bulletin board, the consumers can then pull off from the bulletin board whenever they want. So let's go ahead and make our producer go into a topic. So let's put in our topic. So let's go into our client target / producer.jar topic. So let's make sure we put topic this time. So if we go ahead and run it, you will see this right over here. So it said that it sent these messages to a topic. So let's go ahead into our consumer and now run the exact same thing. So let's turn on our consumer target sync consumer.jar, and let's make sure we put topic this time since we're looking for our topic. And now that it's running, you can see that there's nothing over here. That's because when using subscriptions on a topic, the messages that were sent before you created the subscription on the topic will not be added to the subscription that is delivered to the consumer. In layman's terms, because you produced your messages before these guys had a chance to subscribe to them, these guys aren't able to get your messages. So now that this guy is running, let's go ahead and run it. Client target producer, since this is our producer, and topic. And let's send 3 messages. And now you will find that 3 messages sent over here will translate to 3 messages read over here. And because these messages were sent after the consumer was started, the client now receives them. So going to our next examples, make sure don't close these 2 to keep them open for our next examples. And now let's take a look into our message listeners for asynchronous message delivery. So message listeners allow application clients like this one to send and receive messages asynchronously. A little thing to note though, this only works in application clients. To allow asynchronous messaging in web or enterprise applications, you would use a message-driven bean, which we will see later. Okay, so now let's run our synchronous example. So first, you'll need to go to your 2 terminal windows that you did in your receiving messages synchronously example. And in the terminal where you ran the sync consumer client, go to the async example directory. So all you got to do over here is go ahead and go into your paste that. And what we're doing is we're going to the async consumer instead of sync consumer. Let's go ahead and go into that CDI. And now that we're inside that, let's go ahead and run the async consumer client, specifying the topic destination type. So let's go ahead and put client target / async consumer.jar topic. So as you can see here, our destination type is topic, and it asks to end the program whenever you want. So right now it is waiting for some messages. Next, in the terminal window where you did the producer client previously, run the client again, sending 3 messages. So let's go ahead and put app client target. This is our producer .jar and let's make sure that you can see that topic 3. And you will be happy to find that your messages over here that has been sent, it's now read by the topic over here. So the difference between this asynchronous consumer and the synchronous consumer is that in this case it doesn't matter when the consumer is is connected to this producer. Whenever the consumer is up, this producer can send whatever it wants, and then it can send, this consumer can then consume it later on. So let's go ahead and press Q over here and press return. And now what we're going to do is now let's run the clients using a queue. So in this case, as with the synchronous example, you can run the producer client first, but there's no timing dependency between the sender and the receiver. So if we go into our producer.jar, go ahead and put app client once again, target / producer jar q 3. So if we do that, run that, you will see the output right over here, sending message 3. So in the other window, let's go ahead and run our async consumer client. Go ahead and put client target slash async. Yep, async consumer.jar, and make sure that it's in the queue. And here you will find that your message has been received even though this guy hasn't been updated yet. This means that this consumer, this asynchronous consumer, can take in messages even though this hasn't been run yet, but the producer has sent it. So that means that you don't have to be up to receive messages from the producer. So now that we're done that, let's run our browsing messages on a queue example. So have you ever had in a queue and you wanted to look inside what you got before you actually got it? Well, with browsing messages, you can go ahead and do that now. Now to run this example, all you need is your 2 terminal windows. So first of all, go into your producer directory, as you can see over here, and run your producer client. So let's go ahead, you know the jam, our clients, target slash producer jar q. So make sure, there we go, q. And this will output this message over here. Destination type is q, and sending message, just one message. In our other terminal window, let's go ahead and navigate to our message browser. So let's go ahead, paste this guy in, and let's go into our message browser. Okay, so now that you're in it, let's run this guy. Target message browser jar, and let's run that. And you will be blasted with all this code. So what does this mean? So the first message over here is your text message, and the second message is the non-text control message. So this message is the one that you actually sent, and this is the one just indicating that I'm done sending you stuff. You can go ahead and stop now. So let's go into our sync consumer directory to see this message. So let's go ahead and put go into the sync consumer directory. So let's go into our sync consumer, and once you're in that, go ahead and put app client target. Since we're in our sync consumer now, go ahead and put jar and check out what's inside our queue. And the output of this client will be your message that is sent. This is message 1 from producer. And that's it. That's all there is about this example on how to see your messages before you get them and how you see your messages after you get them. Now that you got that, let's show you the power of the PubSub model. So let's use one more consumer than the one consumer that we have now. Alright, so to give you a recap, I got one producer CMD over here, one sync consumer client over here, and now I'm going to create another sync consumer client. Go into your CMD once again, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to navigate to my sync consumer. So these two will be my consumers over here. So consumer over here and consumer over here. And this is my producer. So let's just close that up. All right. So in each of the sync consumer windows, let's start running the client. So these can receive the messages from a queue. Let's put in a app client. You already noticed, so let's go ahead and put that. Sync consumer.jar queue. And while that's running, let's put in this guy as well, target. This guy is also a sync consumer.jar queue. All right, so now that these guys are running, let's go. Actually, this guy is still running. There we go. This guy is up. And let's wait for this guy to finish. All right, so now that this guy is done, let's go into our producer and put in the stuff that we need. So all we got to do is run this guy with the thing that you already know. Target producer jar, and make it a queue. Oh, let's make sure that you can see that actually. Queue and make it 20. So what we're doing is we're sending 20 messages to 2 of these clients. So once these 20 messages are sent, I want you to see closely at these 2 consumers. You will find that only a few messages has been sent here and a few messages have been sent here. This is because a point-to-point model, which in this case we have between these queues, can only have one producer and one consumer. This means that some clients may not be able to receive the messages that you want to send. And this can be a problem because let's say you have multiple consumers, you want to send the same message to all these consumers. So this is where the PubSub model really shines. So what we're going to do is, you'll see over here, one guy says message received. This means this guy is stopped, but this guy is still running over here. So let's go ahead and put Control C, and let's terminate this guy. All right, so now that this guy and this guy are ended, let's run the sync consumer clients using a topic. So in each window, let's go ahead and run our thing target/sync consumer.jar and make it a topic this time. Do the same thing over here. Target/sync consumer.jar topic. And wait for these guys to load. Now that they're done loading, let's go into our producer and put in our favorite code, client target/producer.jar, and put in this time topic and put in 20. And now let's look again to our consumers, and you will find that all 20 messages has been sent and they all stopped, saying that they received 20 messages. And this is the power of the PubSub model. You can now send your text messages to all the consumers, and these consumers, if they're subscribed to your topic, they will get all these messages. Now you may remember acknowledging messages. JMS provides 2 ways to consume clients to ensure that a message is not acknowledged before the message is processed. You can either use a synchronous consumer in a JMS context that has been configured to use the client acknowledge setting, which can only be used in application clients, or you can use a message listener for asynchronous message delivery in a JMS context that has been configured to use the default auto acknowledge setting. Since we're using application examples, we will be using the first way. Alright, so in this case, we only need 2 consoles over here. So let's go ahead and put this guy over here. Okay, so now what you want to do is navigate to your producer console and make it run target. Hold on just one second. .jar queue and make it run 3 messages. Now that those messages are sent, let's go into our other console and let's navigate to our, let's say, we will navigate to our client consumer. This is our client acknowledge consumer. Oh, sorry, I just did it wrong. My bad. Client acknowledge consumer. Make sure that it's correct. There we go. And now what we're going to do is run this client, app client, target/client consumer.jar. And so the client output looks something like this along with your additional output. You will see that first of all, your client acknowledges each message explicitly after processing it. So in short, what it's doing is it's reading your message and it's acknowledging it. Reading your message, acknowledging it, and so on. Now, are you feeling like this isn't enough? Boy, do I have something to tell you. Let's get into the more advanced features of JMS: durable subscriptions and transactions. Now, you may remember whenever we used PubSub models, we would have to activate our consumers before sending the messages by the producer for the consumers to receive the message. With durable subscriptions, topics can now hold on to the messages until the user activates again. This means that this producer client can send your message even though your consumer client has not woken up yet. So back to our CMDs, let's actually go ahead and CLS to clear this guy out. CLS to clear this guy out. Okay, so now what we want to do is go into our JMS durable subscription example, durable consumer. Go ahead and go into that directory. And now let's create the resources using the asadmin add resources. And go ahead and put source slash, go ahead and open that up, main slash setup slash glassfish resources XML. So what this does is this command reports the creation of a connector connection pool and a connector resource. So to verify, let's go ahead and put as admin list JMS resources, and you should find your my queue, my topic, and our durable connection factory, which we just created. So now let's go ahead and run the entire thing. So a little disclaimer, let's first teach you how to install Maven before going into this. So I went to this website, mavenapache.org, and I'll link it down in the description below. And once you go into it, let's go down and click this binary zip archive. Go ahead and download it and then extract it, and then copy the little location, like the thing, how to get into this our directory. And what you want to do is go into your environment variables. So you've done this for your Java before and your glassfish server. Let's do it again for our Maven. So go into your system variables, click new, and since I have one over here, go ahead and make it Maven home, and make the variable value wherever your Maven is downloaded. In my case, it's in my download folder and inside this bin over here. So once you got that, go into your path variable and make sure that you go ahead and put in Maven. It should be over here. There we go. So go ahead and put %maven home %/bin, and make sure you have a semicolon at the end. So once you got that, your Maven is already set up. You can then verify your Maven by going into your console. So go into CMD, press and type in nvm version, and once you hit enter, you should see your Apache Maven version. If you're not finding that, go ahead and comment down below. Let me help you out. And so I'm gonna assume that all of this is good and ready, and let's get right into back into our example. Okay, so now let's run our durable subscription example. What I want to do is go into our once again durable consumer, and in this case, what I want to do is in the terminal window, I want to go into CD. There we go, and durable subscription example. So let's make sure we go there. And what I'm gonna do is do Maven install. So what this does, it builds all our classes that are under this durable consumer, all under the durable subscription example. These classes are our durable consumer and unsubscribe examples. So let's go into our durable consumer. So put in CD durable consumer, and let's run the client. So let's do clients target slash durable consumer.jar. So this client creates the durable consumer and then waits for the messages. So let's go into our producer and let's go ahead and run this guy as well. Client, make it target slash producer dot jar and make it a topic of 3. Okay, so once this producer has sent the messages, you'll see that this topic has already gotten those messages, and now this has worked and behaved like any other asynchronous consumer. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and press Q to exit out of this, so this is not running, and let's run this guy again. Now this is the amazing thing about durable subscriptions, is that this topic will then hold on to your messages even though this guy is not working. So if the durable subscription did not exist, these 2 messages would be lost because no consumer on a topic is currently running. However, the durable subscription is still active and it retains the messages. Let's run the durable consumer client again. Go ahead and do client target slash durable consumer jar and topic. And you'll see that these 2 messages that were sent before this this consumer was up has been sent. This means that our durable subscription can send messages even though this guy is sleeping. Now that you got that, let's go ahead and press Q and exit this program. After you've finished running the durable consumer client, run the unsubscriber example to unsubscribe from the durable subscription. In the terminal window, let's go into this directory. So let's go into our, let's do cd ... and that brings us back to this. And let's put cd on subscriber. Okay, so now that we're in that, let's run this target slash unsubscriber subscribe, and let's make sure that that's correct, and go ahead and run that. And this shows that you are unsubscribing from that durable subscription. So now that you're done with your durable subscriptions, let's take a look into our local transactions. So to use local transactions, we'll be taking a look into our transacted example, which demonstrates the use of the request to reply messaging pattern described in the last episode. This example consists of 3 modules: the generic supplier, the retailer, and the vendor. The generic supplier has only one class, generic supplier.java, and the retailer has a class called retailer.java, while the vendor module is a bit more complex with 4 classes: vendor.java, vendor message listener.java, order.java, and sample utilities.java. To bring it all together, this example is a massively simplified e-commerce application. The example shows how to use a queue and a topic in a single transaction, as well as how to pass a JMS context to a message listener's constructor function. So getting right into it, the first thing that we're going to take a look into here is our retailer to vendor order queue. A retailer sends a map message to a vendor order queue, ordering a quantity of computers, and then waits for the vendor's reply. Next, the vendor order queue is then sending all these message orders to our vendor.java class. So once the retail order message, once it's received by the vendor, it will then be sent as an order message to the supplier order topic in one transaction. This JMS transaction uses a single session, so you can combine a receive from a queue, right over here, and a send to a topic. For simplicity, there are only 2 suppliers, one for CPUs and one for hard drives. So next, what we're going to see is our third step. This supplier order topic will then send out this order to the suppliers that are connected to the topic. So these suppliers are our consumers essentially, and this topic is just telling the subscribers, these subscribers to check its inventory and then send items ordered to the queue named in the order messages JMS reply to field. If it does not have enough items in stock, the supplier sends what it has, and the synchronous receive from the topic and the send to the queue takes place in one JMS transaction. Just so you know, this entire thing is just one JMS transaction. So then the next step will be our vendor confirm queue to our vendor. The vendor then receives the supplier's replies from its confirmation queue and updates the state of the order. Messages are processed by an asynchronous message listener called the vendor message listener. Then in our second last step, we'll see that the vendor class will then send a reply to our retailer confirm queue. When all outstanding replies are processed for a given order, the vendor message listener sends a message notifying the retailer whether it can fulfill the order or not. Then finally, we got our sixth step, the retail confirmation queue to our retailer. The retailer receives the message from the vendor. And then briefly after this transaction, the process is repeated as the retailer now asks for twice the computers than before. At random intervals, the vendor client throws an exception to simulate a database problem and cause a rollback. So don't be alarmed if your thing on your end doesn't seem to work out. All right, so now that you got that, let's take a look into our example. So to start this example, once again, let's make sure that our Glassfish server has been started. As you can see, it's already good to go. So let's go into our CMD and make sure that you navigate to your Glassfish docs, whatever your Glassfish is saved, your examples, JMS transacted example, and generic supplier. Go ahead and run that. And now that you're inside that that directory, go ahead and put an as admin add resources, and then source/main/setup. Let's expand that for you. glassfish-resources.xml. Now what this does is it builds your resources and creates them entirely. So to verify that they have been created, as you can see over here, to verify it, you just go ahead and put as admin list JMS resources. And these should be popped up right here. These are the ones that you just created for this example. So to run the transacted example application, you will need 4 terminal windows. So make sure that you start the clients in the correct order. First of all, you want to go into your transacted example. So let's go ahead and put cd ... which just goes back to our transacted example. And go ahead and put Maven install. So this builds all your all the modules and packages up for this example to run. Now that the build is successful, let's go ahead and go to our generic supplier directory. So go into cd generic supplier and use the following command to start the CPU supplier client. So it's app client target / generic supplier.jar, and you know how this rolls. CPU. Go ahead and run that. And you will find this starting CPU supplier little description over here. All you got to do is go into another CMD. And now in this case, just to save you some space, let's go ahead and make this guy real small. Okay. Move him over here. There we go. And let's put this guy right over here. Excuse me while I resize these. There we go. So in your second one, what you want to do is you want to go into your generic supplier directory and use the same command as the one that you just did. supplier.jar up to the point, and then this point you say HD because you want your hard drives. And after some initial input, you will see starting hard drive supplier. Now that your suppliers are open, let's go ahead and open another CMD. Let's go ahead and resize that to our wish over here. And let's navigate to our vendor directory. So make sure that you go into vendor. Make sure that you do that. And let's go ahead and start our vendor client. So let's go ahead and put client target / vendor.jar. And after some input, you will find that it has started the vendor. Now, after all that has started, let's go ahead to our final CMD. Move this guy down here. And let's navigate to our retailer. So let's go ahead, put in retailer. Oh, let's spell retailer right. There we go. And use the command app client target / retailer.jar4. Now this will send 4 requests for like 4 computers. So it's a 1 request for 4 computers. And it will send it to your vendor. And you already saw the prompt before, how it all works. And let's see it in action. Okay, so now after some initial input, you saw that if I go ahead and quickly expand this, you can see that a quantity to be ordered is 4, and it orders 4 computers, and then order is not filled yet. And it's placing another order, and then 8 computers. So what this is the vendor client reports something like the following. So if you go into your vendor and check it out, so go ahead and expand it, you will see that it has this over here. So first of all, it will say, I have a little bit of stuff here, but you will see that first it will try to process your 4 computers. If it's unable to send that, then it will commit a transaction. And if it's completed processing for the second order and send 8 computers, it will then commit the transaction. In this case, it wasn't able to because, like I said before, there might be some random chance that the database might fail. So due to that, there's a rollback. And then inside your CPU supplier, let's take a look into its report. So go ahead and go up. You can see that it ordered 4 CPUs and it ordered 8 CPUs and it committed the transaction. So that's all cool. Let's see your hard drive supplier. And inside here, you should see the basically the exact same thing, except for you know that the database kind of failed over there. So it sent 0 hard drives. But other than that, it looks pretty good. And you can repeat these steps as many times as you want. Occasionally, since we're kind of lucky, or not lucky, we have our error already in our first case. After you finish running the clients, you can go ahead and delete the destination resources by using the following commands. So let's go ahead and actually, let's just go ahead, delete this, delete guy, delete this guy. And let's make sure these guys aren't sticking around to mess us up. Go ahead and put asadmin delete JMS resource JMS /AQ. Okay, and that's cool. So do another one for our other guys. Delete JMS resource JMS /BQ. Now that's cool. Asadmin delete resource JMS CQ. And that's cool. And now we have finally our topic to delete. JMS resource JMS /O topic. And there we go. That's all there is about this example on logo transactions. Alright, so sometimes you'll just need to handle many messages at the same time. This example, which I'll be showing you, shows you how to allow you to handle them robustly and how to use both non-durable subscriptions and durable shared subscriptions. So let's take a look into our using shared non-durable subscriptions. In this example, subscribers shared a subscription to a topic, which means that a topic can send only one message to any of the subscribers. Oh, let's see that animation again. So, which means that a topic can send only one message to any of the subscribers that are up. The clients we'll be using will be our familiar producer.java sending client and our new recruit shared consumer.java, which is very similar in makeup to the async consumer.java receiving client we saw before. But the difference is in that the shared consumer.java always uses a topic. So to run our shared consumer, all right. So let's go into our CMD, go into CD, and go into our JMS simple producer, which you can see over here in our notepad. Go ahead and copy that and go into that CMD or CD. And then so let's go to our third command prompt window. Let's go ahead and put CMD once again. And in this case, let's go ahead and shrink that and make that bigger. And let's make this, let's go into our shared consumer. So go into JMS /shared consumer. And now put an nvm install, and all that does is it builds all the examples that we'll be running next. Okay, so what we're gonna do next is we're gonna do another command prompt. Go ahead and make that small. CMD. Make that small. Make that extend. And let's go ahead and do the same thing over here. So JMS shared /shared consumer. There we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to, in both of these, all we got to do is put app client target /shared consumer .jar. Do the same thing over here. And one thing that you'll find interesting is that you don't need to specify a topic argument over here, since all shared consumers will always use a topic. So wait until you see the following output in both the windows. Here you can see waiting for messages on output topic, and the same over here. So in the producer window, all you got to do is go ahead and put app client target producer jar topic 20. So this will send 20 messages to these two consumers, these two shared consumers. So what you'll find real quickly is that, let me just move this guy over here, open that up. And you can see that it's sent. All right, awesome. So you'll see that some messages has been sent here and some messages have been sent here as well. So that means that either this guy or this guy can get the messages. It doesn't matter which one of these two, since they're shared, they have a shared subscriber. And now that you got that, let's go ahead and press Q over here to stop this guy. And go ahead and press Q here to stop that guy. And you can see that this guy got 11 messages received, and this guy got only 9. Now, shared durable subscriptions in stark contrast shows us how to use these shared durable subscriptions, which combine the advantages of durable subscriptions, which is holding messages when the client is not ready, and the shared consumers, where messages can be sent to one of multiple clients. So you can see over here, our topic held on to a message until people got up and were ready for it, and then it sent a message to one of these two. Okay, so let's not change anything over here. Let's go ahead to our CD and let's go to our shared, and let's go up to our shared durable consumer. And let's go ahead and install everything that we need over there. So next, after it's done building, which it is, we can then go ahead and run the client to first establish the first durable subscription. Let's go ahead and do that. Client target slash shared durable consumer .jar. And let's wait for the client to display the following queue. Okay, so now that you ran that, you can see that it's waiting for your message on topic. Go ahead and press Q to stop it. But now that you've created that subscription, that subscription has not been broken and the subscription remains active, although the client is not running in this case. Let's go ahead into our producer class over here and run our app client target slash producer.jar topic 6. Go ahead and run that. And once the producer has sent those messages, let's go ahead and open another terminal window, which is our terminal window over here, and go to our shared durable consumer directory. So let's go ahead and cd, so we can drop down to our shared and go into cd shared shared durable consumer. Okay. And then next, let's run the client in both the first and so this one over here and this one over here. So let's go ahead and run them. Client target slash shared durable consumer.jar. Oh, I spelled that wrong. Client target slash shared durable consumer. Let's make sure that we spell that right. Do the same thing over here. Shared durable consumer.jar. So what this is trying to show you is how this guy got the messages that the producer sent, even though this guy wasn't even active. Check it out. So it got all those messages. And now that the messages will be shared between the two consumer clients, if you continue sending groups of messages to the topic, each client receives some of the messages. And if you exit one of the clients and send more messages, the other client will receive all the messages. That's why this guy got all the messages, since this guy was the first guy to open up and got all those messages that were batched in. But if these guys ran at the exact same time, this guy would get some of the messages and this guy would get some of the messages. So once again, go ahead and press Q to stop that guy, Q to stop that guy. You see this guy got 6 messages, 0 messages, and I think we are done. Now let's take a little break and let's take a look into sending and receiving messages using a simple web application. Now web applications can use the JMS API to send and receive messages as well. The example here, web simple message, is under the wherever your JMS and wherever your glassfish is installed, JMS example directory. It uses sending and receiving facelets pages as well as corresponding backing beans, which you can see over here, and the facelets pages over here. When a user enters a message in the text field of the sending page and clicks a button, the backing bean for the page sends the message to a queue, and then it displays it on the page. When the user goes on the receiving page and clicks another button, the backing bean for that page receives the message synchronously and displays it. What that means is I type in something, I enter it, this guy holds on to it, and then I go to the next page and see what I entered in. So let's take a look into our NetBeans first. Inside our NetBeans, let's go ahead and click Open Project, and let's go to our JMS and Web Simple Message. Go ahead and open our project up. And what you'll see first of all is, go into our web pages and our sender.xml, XHTML. This is basically the guide that you'll be introduced to first. All you do here is you input anything that you want to send over to your next page. The user can type a message to send to the next page and then go to the receiver page to see his sent message. So let's go ahead to our receiver page. And in this page, the user can see the message sent by the queue and can then navigate back to the previous sender page to send another message if they wish. Okay, so let's take a look into our backend, our backing beans. So we have our sender bean.java, which first of all, it defines, so one thing you'll see here, the add JMS destination definition annotation, which defines our queue that we will be using to store and send our message. It just gives all our definitions of our queue. And then there's the send message method over here. If you go down all the way, a send message method. And essentially what it does is it injects a JMS context using the default connection factory, and the queue creates a producer, sends the message the user typed on the facelets page, and creates a faces message to display on the facelets page. That's a lot of stuff, but once you see it, it will be really intuitive to understand. Then there's the receiver bean.java, which is essentially like kind of like the opposite of the sender bean, which in this case, it gets the message instead of sending a message. This get message method injects a JMS context using the default connection factory and the queue that was defined in the sender bean, which creates a consumer, receives the message, and creates a faces message to display on the facelets page. So now that you got that, let's go ahead and build him. And let's run this example. Go ahead and click run. Make sure you select glassfish server, remember permanently, please. And let's run this. So in this example, go ahead and put in any message you want. Let's say hello Viprov, and send the message. Now it sent the message to the next page. If we go to our receive page, you'll see that you can receive the message, and then it says here that the message from the producer that you sent is hello Viprov. Go ahead and send another message. Let's say hello Pranav. Go ahead and send a message and go to your receive page and receive that, and you'll see that your message from your own self was hello Pranav. And go ahead and do that as many times as you want. Once you're done with that, go into your services, servers, glassfish server, resources, and applications, web simple message. Let's undeploy that because we don't need that anymore. And go ahead and close that guy. In our next part, let's take a look into receiving messages asynchronously using a message-driven bean. So before, we only needed to deal with the way to have an asynchronous message in application clients. You would have to first define a class that implements the message listener interface, create a JMS consumer, and then call the method using a set message listener. But with EJBs and web clients, it's a little bit different. You first have to, of course, define a class that implements the message listener interface. Then you would have to configure a message listener class to be a message-driven bean. And then third, you would have to let the application server take care of the rest. A great characteristic of message-driven beans is that it can implement any kind of messaging service, but in our case, we'll just stick to JMS. So here is what an example would look like. Inside our NetBeans, let's open our project and ensure that you go into your simple message. Make sure that you click open required projects because you need all these projects. Go ahead and open all these. And what you'll find is inside your app client, go into source packages and double click that guy, and go into your EJB and double click that guy. So what we have here is first our application client. This first injects the connection factory and queues our resources. Second, it creates the JMS context. And third, it sends several text messages. It sends several text messages to the queue. In our message bean, this one specifies the configuration properties. And second, the onMessage method displays the text. So now to run the example, all you got to do is in the projects tab over here, right click the simple message and click build. So once this command has already packaged all your application clients and message driven beans, let's go to the output window. Hold on. All right. If you just saw that, like up there, you can see that it sent the messages, message 1, 2, and 3. So if you go to our server log, which you can go into services, glassfish server, view domain server log, you can see that the messages were received by the glassfish server. And although the received messages may appear in a different order from the order in which they were sent, like the important thing is that this stuff sent these messages and it relayed all the way back to our glassfish server. So after you're done with this, after you're done, finish running the application, undeploy it by going into your services tab. Go ahead and go to that. And let's go ahead and undeploy that because we don't need it anymore. And let's select all these guys and close them. Okay, I promised you guys we're almost done. Next, let's take a look into using an entity to join messages from two MDBs. So what you'll see in this section is how to write, compile, package, and deploy and run an application that uses the JMS API with an entity. So you'll see that an application that sends and receives messages, two message-driven beans, and finally an entity class. So this application simulates in a simplified way the workflow of a company's human resources department when it processes a new hire. This application also demonstrates how to use the Java EE platform to accomplish a task that many JMS applications need to perform. A messaging client often has the job of waiting for messages to come from many sources. It then uses parts of these messages to create a custom message and then sends that to another destination. This design pattern is called joining messages. Now, since a message-driven bean can only handle one message at a time, we can use a JPA entity to hold on to the information of these different messages. We can then remove this entity after we're done with it. Alright, so the basic steps of the application are as follows. So first of all, the HR department application client generates an employer ID for each new hire and then publishes a message, which we'll call M1, containing the new hire's name, employee ID, and position. It publishes the message to a topic over here, and it publishes it to a topic because the message needs to be consumed by our two message-driven beans. The client then creates a temporary reply queue, with a message listener that waits for a reply to the message. We'll be seeing it later on. Next, these two message-driven beans process each message. The office MDB assigns the new hire's office number, and the other bean, equipment MDB, assigns the new hire's equipment. The first bean to process the message creates and persists an entity called setupOffice, then calls a business method of the entity to store the information it has generated. The second bean locates the existing entity and calls another business method to add its information. Next, when both the office and the equipment have been assigned, the entity business method returns a value of true to the message-driven bean that called the method. The message-driven bean then sends to the reply queue a message M2 describing the assignments. Then it removes the entity. The application client's message listener retrieves the information, and finally it is sent to our HR client. In our NetBeans, you can see all that going on once we open a project and take a look into our client session MDB entity over here. So first of all, you will find that in our application client, go ahead and open this guy up. You will see the human resource client. Over here, this client defines a topic for the application. It injects a connection factory and topic resources. So let me just actually show you what's going on. So it defines a topic for the application. As you can see over here, it defines your connection factory and injects the connection factory and topic resources over here. It creates a temporary queue. And if you see over here, it creates a temporary queue. And to receive notifications of processing that occurs based on new hire events it has published. It then creates a JMS consumer for the temporary queue. So if you see over here, it's then checking our hire ID. Then it creates a map message, which is used over here for our message. It says create map message. And then it creates 5 new employees. So it creates 5 new employees in random positions, as you can see over here. And then we can take a look into our message-driven bean, which is our equipment mdb.java. if you go into our AJB, you see equipment MDB Java. And all this is doing is in our on message over here, it chooses equipment based on the new hire's position and then sends a confirmation if a seat has been created for a new hire. Alternatively, our office MDB does the same exact thing, except it checks for an office position for our hire. Then there's the setup office.java. This one is used to hold on to information as the message-driven beans do their thing. Once again, these message-driven beans can't be looking at all the data at once. It has to go through data one by one. So this setup office.java holds on to those like the employee names, office numbers, and stuff, while these two do their work. Now let's go ahead and build this guy and see what it does. Okay, so let's take a look into our output. You can see over here that it's created a few new hires over here. You can see these hires, and the positions are given as random. And then the new events are processed all through, and then finally they are they're showing like how many messages are waiting once they process. Next message, and then finally we are done with our example. And that's it. That's all there is about our JMS. And we are finally done with our JMS example. These are all the examples that are shown onto the concepts that I showed you in the previous episode. And next, what we'll be taking a look at is our incredible security in our Java EE platform. So next tutorial, we'll be talking about an introduction into security. And thank you so much for staying through this almost like an hour-long video. And I will see you in the next video to start off our introduction into security.